Hi friends. So today I want to give you another staff pick. The staff pick is You Were Born for This by Father John Riccardo. You Were Born for This is part of a series from really a ministry that Father Riccardo and his team runs called Acts 29. And Acts 29 is a podcast, but he's doing a series within that called You Were Born for This. What is You Are Born for This? And by the way, you can get to Acts 29 and You Were Born for This, the podcast, through like Apple iTunes or Spotify. But before I get into that, just a little bit about Father John Riccardo. He's a classmate of mine. We both got to study in Rome together and really have started to reconnect over, the last 10 or so years in our friendship. In my opinion, one of the top pastors in the United States right now. And not just in his ability to evangelize, but even just how to run a parish. A dynamic, on fire, transformative culture in a parish that is really changed the lives of so many of his parishioners, and now many priests have paid attention to him and how he runs a parish across the United States. And so what Father Riccardo and his team is doing now is kind of taking a break from running a parish and teaching dioceses and parishes and priests around the United States about how to run a parish and how to live as a priest and how to do ministry and how to conduct a new evangelization, something that we're always talking about and desiring here at St. Francis. So he's a priest that really inspires me. He's doing a series, as I mentioned, called You Are Born for This. And I want you to, if you get a chance, to look at episode 66 in particular, because he gives a shout out to St. Francis de Sales Parish and what we're doing here. But specifically, he talks about 4 models of parishes and how parishes are run out there. And that the 4th model is the model where we all want to get to as a parish. But again, before we get to that, I really want to encourage you to watch as many of episodes as you can of Acts 29, and specifically this kind of sub-series called You Were Born for This, because You Were Born for This is a lot about, each episode is a lot about how to navigate this uncertain time that we're in and where we should be going in the future. And not just like as a priest or as a parish, but where you and us and we as Christians, Catholic Christians, should be going into the future. I just think it's packed full of a lot of wisdom and hope and the stuff that really can, if we pay attention to it, change the way that we live our lives and our relationships and what's important to our lives. And use this time of great change in our society to make sure that good, positive change in our own lives comes out of that. But if you can only watch one in the beginning, I would recommend episode 66. I really like what he and his team so astutely point out, and that is that there's 4 categories now of parishes and priests and how parishes are run today. The first 3 are not ideal. The 4th one is one to aspire to. So the first one is basically where nothing much is going on in a parish. I mean, people show up for Mass, the priest does the Mass, he does the sacraments, and that's about it. The basics, the stuff that is required, the stuff that is expected. And that's exactly then, in parishes like that, how parishioners conduct themselves. I'm supposed to go to Mass, so of course not all of them, maybe about 1/3 of the population or less who are registered parishioners end up going to Mass. And yeah, they get their kids baptized, I get married there maybe, and one day I'm going to get buried there. And oh, please call the priest when I'm sick, for the sacrament anointing of the sick. That's it, That's the baseline. That's not what Christ envisioned for our lives as individuals, as Christians, and certainly not what he envisioned when he created the church. And specifically, remember, he created the Roman Catholic Church. The next is where the priest is trying to feed his people and do more than the baseline, But it ends up that he's doing it all. And this is the old model, by the way. Remember, even like here at St. Francis or whatever parish you've grown up in, just take it back about 40, 50 years ago. And there was usually 3 or 4 priests in the parish. And then maybe they had a secretary and they had a housekeeper and a maintenance guy, right? And that was about it. If they had a school, they had religious teachers, they had nuns and a principal. But that's it in the parish. Priest, secretary, bookkeeper, maybe, and then somebody who was a housekeeper and somebody who was maintenance. That was it. Well, we're still operating with that model in many of our parishes today, where back then the priests did everything. And there was usually a lot that was going on in the community, like with social stuff and with not just the sacraments, but spiritual life and community events and gatherings and educating the people in the catechism. Well, bring that forward now 40, 50, or 60 years, and there are still parishes out there where the priest is running everything in the parish. And here's the thing, and the parishioners are letting it happen and expecting it, right? What's going on from that? Well, the priest gets burned out. The priest ends up leaving the parish. The priest gets himself involved with trouble because he's trying to, find ways to just decompress or blow off steam. He started having drinking problems or any number of other things, right? That's not the ideal model. The next model is where the priest and the staff are doing everything. By the way, Father Riccardo talks about how, from a national study, that the average size of a parish staff in the United States for Catholic parishes, I'm going to take a guess, 2.5 staff members. The priest and 2.5 staff members. That's the average of parishes in the United States. No wonder people are leaving the church, right? Their needs are not being met. But even in parishes like ours, we are so blessed, right? In the last 3 years, we built up our parish to have over 30 staff members. Some are paid full-time and paid part-time. Others are missionaries, and others are unpaid staff that are here because they believe in our mission. Okay, there are parishes out there, third model, where the priests and the staff do everything. And what happens? It's the same thing that happens with the priest, happens to the staff. There's massive turnovers among the staff because everything is being handled by them and the priest. The priest burns out and the staff burns out and the needs of the people are not met. Then he talks about, in episode 66, where we all want to get to. And that is where the priest, the staff, and the parishioners all together work towards the mission. And the mission is the new evangelization. And in every parish that is taking on the new evangelization, they're not declining, they're growing. And not just in number, but the people that are sitting in the pews. Especially when you first implement the new evangelization, the first few waves of the early innovators, of the ones who say, I'm all in, they jump in. And then the fence sitters come along later, and then the people who are on the other side who never expected to jump over to the right side, they start coming on. And it's a progression. It takes 10, 12, 15, sometimes more than that, years in order to do that. But where they all work together. Yeah, where the priest is part of setting the vision for the parish. The staff are overseeing a lot of the ministries, but it's the parishioners themselves who are running the ministries. I can think of multiple examples of that right here at St. Francis, where we have many people, for instance, involved with adult faith formation. We have a group running our Alpha. We We have a group running our Walking with Purpose. We have a group running our couples ministry. We have a group running our young adults ministry, and so on. Yes, there's a staff members attached to that, but they're not running it, meaning they're not doing the setup and the cleanup and the facilitation of the groups and the serving of the food and all that kind of stuff. The parishioners are doing on it, and they're doing it because they themselves are on fire, being fed, and they want to make sure that others are being fed too. It's a great episode that gives a model, really, for what we're attempting to do here at St. Francis. What we're attempting to do here at St. Francis is what Christ had in mind for the Christian church in general and for the Roman Catholic Church specifically. Yes, there's a leader. And yes, there's a core group, we'll call them the disciples, the apostles, the staff. And then yes, there are all these so many other people who are part of the mission of being followers of Jesus Christ, of following him, and then going out and calling so many more others to follow along. That's why the church exists. It doesn't exist so that the priest does everything, or a few staff do everything. So that Jesus and the apostles did everything, and then after that, everything collapsed. No, after that, everything grew. Because Jesus formed the apostles. That's one of my main functions here in this parish, is to form the staff and to develop them and to guide and to shape them and to inspire them and to give them all the tools that they need in order to do the same with you. To develop you, to shape and to form you, to guide you, to feed you, to lead you and walk alongside of you, to accompany you, so that then you can do the same with so many others, like the people you love the most, your children, your spouses, your brothers and sisters, your people on sports teams, your neighbors, your co-workers, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your friends. This is God's vision for the church. And this is the vision that our parishes have to get back to. Our marriages have to get back to. Our families have to get back to. Our culture has to get back to. This is why we were born. We were born for this. We were born for this. I hope you take a chance to start listening into Father Riccardo. I think one of the best pastors in the United States right now, and his series of a podcast called You Were Born for This. Until next time, friends.